Um, uh, the way I would describe it is, it's a shared nothing scalable clustering solution based on the world's most advanced open source database, that is PostgreSQL. Um, what we try to do is give a signal system image um, to the client. So it's bunch of nodes acting as in different roles as coordinators or data nodes. There is a special component which is called GTM. But together, what they do is they present a single system image to the clients. The client can connect to any of the coordinators, but they still see their data as if they are, as they would have done, or seen if they have connected to a single node PostgreSQL instance. So that's the idea. I think that you might draw parallels with other MPP systems out there, but there are certain things which differentiates Postgres XL, and I'll talk about them. So here are the key features of the solution. Um, it's a sharding solution, and since morning I have heard this multiple times now, um, both in terms of the PostgreSQL community moving in that direction to have sharding support in Postgres, because obviously customers and users are demanding for that, and Postgres XL exactly tries to solve that problem. Uh, you could you know the difference probably is that Excel does it in a transparent manner. So you don't have to do any declarative partitioning. You don't have to specify constraints like you would have to do for inherited tables. Here you just define that this is my table and this is my distribution strategy. I want to say distribute the table by hash of a particular column, or just evenly distribute data across all nodes, or make certain tables replicated, because obviously uh, that has certain use case as well. Uh, by doing this, what we are trying to do is support databases which can have terabytes and maybe even petabytes of data, tens of node. I kind of feel little scared to say hundreds of node. I'm not a marketing guy, I'm a developer, right? So if there was a salesman standing here, he would have said hundreds of nodes. I would say tens of nodes, because that's what I have tested so far. But we'll basically have the architecture should easily support large number of nodes in the cluster, and your cluster can grow. That you can add more nodes to the cluster as your requirement grows. Um, Parallel query execution, obviously another important aspect uh, that has been echoed throughout the day, and Excel does that already. Uh, we try to push down as much computation as possible to nodes. At the same time, make sure that we involve the only set of nodes which are required for executing a particular query. Uh, and finally, there is this entire machinery to do redistribution of data between nodes, so that when you have to do a join, and if the data is not available locally, so instead of pulling everything on the coordinator, what you can do is maybe just pull the required data on one of the data nodes, and then perform the join there and send the result back to the coordinator. Uh, all of that is in Excel. Um, so as I said, you can have multiple data nodes, you can have multiple coordinators, which is probably another differentiating factor. There are clustering solutions out there which might just support a single coordinator, whereas Postgres XL with Postgres XL you can have as many coordinators as you want. And we do this without compromising on the data consistency. So irrespective of which coordinator you connect to, what kind of queries you are doing, read, writes, updates, your data would always be, your results would always be consistent, just like a single instance Postgres would do. There are uh, bunch of things which have been added in the system itself to guard it against single point of failure. And I don't think I have time to, get into the details of Excel because that would probably a half day, talk. But we can talk about that later after the talk is over. I don't know why it's not coming correctly, but Postgres XL 9.5 R1 Beta 1 has been released last week. I hope some of you might have followed that news already. And for rest, here is the news. Um, you know, if you want to try it out, please do that. And if you see issues, please report back to us. It's still in beta stage, so expect to uh, have certain bugs, but we have tried hard to make sure that it's in a much better shape now. Here are some of the users that we are kind of aware of who are using Postgres XL, and most of these are on the older release of Postgres, which was XL 9.2. Um, you can probably find about these names later. And as I said, these are probably just a small list. We don't have a large list, but there are many users and who are using Excel, but just that they never reported back to the community. So let me. Acha. Oh. Hey. Okay, better. Probably. Hmm, Sorry. Okay. So this is brief history of Postgres XL. Somebody asked me, I think Abhijit probably asked me some time back that what's the history. So the project actually started with something called as Postgres XC. I was involved in the Postgres XC project from very beginning. And there were companies like Enterprise DB and NTT which were involved in the initial stage. And then there was a parallel company called GridSQL, which my friend Mason Sharp was doing a few years back. And as a combination of these technologies, a company called StormDB was formed. Nikhil was part of that company, which later released Postgres XL. They made it open source. The red boxes here in the diagram are showing the commercial companies. The yellow box is an open source product, but not compatible with PostgreSQL license, whereas all the blue boxes are PostgreSQL license. So the good news is Postgres XL 9.5 is actually compatible with PostgreSQL license. That's pretty good. Um, so there are these two projects which are going on in parallel, Postgres XL and Postgres XC. There is kind of a tacit, I would say, agreement between the community to merge back these projects into a single project. We call it Postgres X2, which would be governed by the same open source governance model that PostgreSQL is governed by. So there is no one single company which would control or have kind of authority on the uh, product, and that's amazing, and I think that's what makes PostgreSQL also so amazing. Um, so Postgres XL 9.5 development work was partially funded by, it was done under the Axel project, which was, so there was a lot of funding which came from European Union for their needs. Um, and apart from, catching up with the latest release of PostgreSQL, we also added bunch of features, made performance improvement, did a lot of testing, benchmark the product to see how it really performs. Postgres XL will be fully supported by second quadrant, by our gold support, and we are actually hoping that other commercial companies would uh, come and join uh, the project. So these are the key areas where we have spent a lot of time while uh, making Excel 9.5. Stability, performance, scalability, these are the key areas where we have focused a lot. The configuration installation has been improved as well. There were kind of rough edges which have been polished, and hopefully when you try Excel 9.5, if at all you had previously tried 9.2 and was disappointed, uh, I sincerely hope that this release would be much better. There are also improvements to high availability, specifically related to replicated tables. Uh, so 9.5 Excel 9.5 was a major jump in a sense that the last Postgres XL release that came out was based on PostgreSQL 9.2, which means that Excel was missing all the hard work that Robert and other community members have put in last 3 years in core PostgreSQL. So Postgres XL 9.5 should give you almost everything that went into PostgreSQL in last 3-4 years. I've just had a small list here, picked up from the major changes that are there in release notes. So all of these things should work with Postgres XL. There are certain things which don't work because the when we did the 9.5 work for Excel, the focus was not on adding new features, but basically to just do things in the right way. So performance is one critical area where I have personally put in a lot of efforts. Postgres XL was always doing good for OLAP, but when we started benchmarking Excel, we saw that OLTP performance is not so great. So a lot of efforts have been put into for improving the OLTP performance of Excel. For example, something like fast query shipping that we did in XC as well has been now ported back to Excel. There was a situation where Excel would consume a transaction identifier for every transaction, irrespective of whether it's a read transaction or a write transaction. We fixed this in Postgres few years back, but Excel was missing this. So it's now there. Also, there has been significant improvements in the way that, the global state is maintained at the GTM. And again, this was all uncovered during the benchmarks, and we re-architect few things to make sure that overload on or load on the GTM is reduced to minimum. Similarly, the communications, the round trips between coordinators and GTM is reduced. The other area is scalability. When people or users were testing Excel 9.2, we we used to see complaints that it doesn't scale beyond 36 nodes, or uh, uh, maybe even lesser number of nodes. So uh, I have personally tested it with 30 data nodes and 8 coordinators using AWS instances. It works fine. I see no reason why it shouldn't really work with more number of nodes. I haven't been able to get test anything more than that, but I think it should just work. And you can add more nodes on demand as the situation, if you need more scalability. The other aspect is manageability. And again, when I started uh, testing Excel, I realized that there are rough edges around how cluster is configured, how nodes are added, how replication is set up, how failover is done. All of that has been now taken care in the new release of Excel. And the PGXCTL utility, which is, as the name suggests, it has been borrowed from Postgres XC project, but it has been improved significantly to make sure that all of these things are taken care of nicely. So you can add data nodes, remove data nodes, add coordinators, set up replicas of data nodes, failover, you know, and all of that should work with the new release of Postgres XL. And then stability. Yeah, I think that's again, a concern area for many people, right? Especially when we know Postgres is rock solid, right? I mean, uh, anybody sitting here can vouch for that. They have absolute confidence in PostgreSQL. Um, the projects like Postgres XC and XL, there is always this concern about stability, and we have worked really hard to address many concerns in these areas. Um, we also added, HA for replicated tables. Like earlier, what used to happen is if you got a table which is replicated on two nodes, and if a node goes down, half the time your queries would fail. Now, we have a built-in health map which keeps track of status of, health status of various nodes, so that you don't involve a failed node in a operation if you can avoid it, right? I mean, there are situations where you can't. For example, if a table is sharded, and if your query needs the data from a failed node, obviously that can't work. And you have to employ different other techniques like failovers and things like that. There have been numerous bug fixes. I've probably lost count of it. But with the uh, with the regression test, and with the different benchmarks that we have run, I now feel much more confident about the quality of this release. There have been, some miscellaneous improvement about debug facilities where, and I personally find this quite interesting. I don't know why PostgreSQL doesn't have it yet, where you can selectively change logging levels for a specific module. Say, I want to log all messages in planner or executor, or just say, I've set the debug level for cluster as warning, but I'm investigating some issue and I want to increase logging level for certain messages without restarting the cluster, and all of that now can be done with Excel. Another challenge with Excel was that since it's a distributed system, you need to have enough logging information so that you can correlate log messages from different nodes, and all of that has been now added to Excel. As a developer, I find it quite helpful to diagnose issues, and as the release goes out, and you start using it, uh, you might basically find this useful as well. So here are, some numbers from the TPC-H benchmarks that we did. Um, this is a 16 node, uh, 16 data node cluster using AWS instances. The blue line here shows the time that PostgreSQL 9.6 takes. This is kind of, I think we did these benchmarks in maybe September, October, so not the latest 9.6, but whatever the head was there at that point. And the red lines show the amount of time that Postgres XL took to execute the same queries. There are certain caveats here, that the PostgreSQL obviously was run on a single node, whereas Excel was run on a 16 node cluster. But the PostgreSQL, or the machine on which we ran PostgreSQL, was a very beefy machine, right? Half terabyte of RAM, lots of CPU and everything. Uh, Whereas the Excel instances were pretty small. So total cost of ownership was probably still lower for Excel. And you could see, for large number of queries, Excel almost shows a linear scalability. So if you have a 16 node, your query would run 16 times faster on Excel as compared to PostgreSQL, which is not surprising, because that's how we kind of partition the queries. There are certain queries which probably may not work as good, and certain queries might actually run even poorly. Uh, and then, after the OLAP benchmarks, I spent a lot of time doing the OLTP benchmarks as well. This graph, shows you how Postgres XL behaves when we move from, say, 2 node cluster to 8 node cluster. And the blue line here shows the baseline for Postgres, whereas the red and orange and green lights are showing you 2 node, 4 node, 8 node Postgres XL. This is a select only query, and all these instances are of the same type. And it clearly shows that Postgres XL can scale very well even for OLTP workloads. So you won't get 8 times performance for single node cluster, but it's pretty good. Yeah. Well, these are small machines, right? Not very beefy machines. So yeah, I mean it's hard to get 8 node, 8 machines like what you are talking about. Right. That's possible, but all these instances are running in cloud. I have seen the AWS instances. They do pretty good. I mean, I don't know how they are run in the data centers, but they are virtual. Yeah, sure. I mean, I take that. I don't have any insight into, or I haven't personally done any benchmarks. So I clearly don't know the results. Sure, sure, sure. Sure, sure. That's possible. Yeah. And similarly, these are numbers for the read-write workload, and even here you would see that scalability with the increasing number of nodes is good. It's not obviously, it's not linear scalability with Postgres XL, but it's still, I would say maybe 3.5 times of single instance Postgres when you are doing, using 8 node XL cluster. So this is, there are a lot of debates and discussions going on, the sharding future of PostgreSQL, and we as Postgres XL community, we are kind of committed to see that whatever developments that we have done in, or whatever learnings that we have made in Postgres XL, that is applied to PostgreSQL. So we hope that, and it's a pretty challenging task. I don't think it's an easy work, but hopefully and steadily, all the things that we have done in Postgres XL will slowly and steadily get into core Postgres. That's a multi-year project. It's going to take 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I don't know how long, but Postgres XL is available now. Someday when everything is available in core, we will all switch to using just Postgres. Till then, you might consider using Postgres XL. Uh, yeah, sure. It's so these are the resources you can use. Yeah, basically, if you find any bugs, please report to the mailing list. And if you need help, please visit the Postgres XL website. Second Conrad has a landing page. Feel free to visit there. Talk to me or any one of us. Thank you. Do I have time to question? Take questions? Okay.
Performance slide, would you please go back? Next.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
If we see the graph, that Q9 has ratio is a bit less. I mean, PostgreSQL and Postgres XL ratio is, if you see, it is much higher as compared to other queries. So it means in that case, it has not given as good performance
Right.
compared to others.
Right.
So was it something? What was different in that query?
So I
If
don't know
you
exactly about that particular query, but I can give you a general answer, right? So if you are doing, for example, a select count star from a sharded table, where that aggregate is like pushed down to all nodes, and the aggregates is run in parallel on all nodes, and result is kind of finalized at the coordinator. That's the best case scenario, and for those queries you would get a almost linear improvement. But if your queries involve joins, and say joins involve cross-node joins where data has to be kind of exchanged between two different data nodes, the performance would not be as good. And I can also basically, there are situations where I've seen where performance might even suck in Postgres XL. It's possible, you can always construct a worst case query, but best case is where the query is well partitioned across all nodes, and then yeah, depending on other scenarios, you'll get somewhere in between.
Okay. Uh, I
This is 16 node. Yeah, I mean, you can start with two. Oh, well, I mean, in terms of physical nodes, you need at least one coordinator, one GTM, two data nodes, but you can run them on the same physical machine as well. So yeah.
Yeah. I think in the interest of time, we should stop now. As I said, Pavan is available, so you
Yeah.
can